Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on X at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. A very warm welcome to Tuesday's edition of the Movies TV Mad Daily. On today's show, we're talking about James Gunn's Superman movie, rumour mill, saying that Bizarro will be in that movie, which I think is awesome, by the way, and that David Corenswet will not only play Superman, but Bizarro too. I think that will be amazing. I'll tell you why I think that will be amazing very, very shortly. Are there any King Kong fans in the house? Because King Kong X, the new empire, has made over 200 million worldwide in its opening weekend. And I want to ask the question on today's video as well. Has David Zaslav saved WB? Well, the fight to save WB is an ongoing thing. But we'll get into that as well. But first of all, while I was going through threads this morning, because there's not really much news out there, and as you know, I like to do a daily video, so I was racking my brains, what should we talk about today? So I noticed there's a rumour that Bizarro will be in James Gunn's Superman movie, previously titled Superman Legacy. Oh boy, it would be so much easier if it was still Superman Legacy, because when you do a video and you talk about Superman, you can just say Superman, people don't know you're actually talking about James Gunn's movie. And it's just so fucking annoying. But never mind, it's not a big deal. Worse things happen at sea, obviously. So would I like to see Bizarro in live action in a Superman movie? Absolutely. I love what they did with Bizarro in the show Superman and Lois, and I thought that, what's his name? Tyler, that's it, Tyler Hoechlin, you know me in names. Tyler Hoechlin did a tremendous job with that, and I thought it was amazing. I've always enjoyed Bizarro. Now, Smallville did a very, very different type of version of Bizarro. So it was interesting to see. I mean, the season 6 finale had this brilliant cliffhanger where, because there's these phantoms that have come from the Phantom Zone, something happens. Not Superman, but Clark, who is Superman eventually. He holds up the crystal, and he splits. Basically the Phantom uses Clark's DNA. So the Phantom now looks like Clark, but he also has all Clark's abilities. But Kryptonite, because he's Bizarro, has the reverse effect. It makes him stronger. But this version of Bizarro, because it's Smallville, and Smallville like to be very cool and slick, wasn't weird. Bizarro in the comics is very weird. He's a calamity, he's an accident waiting to happen. Where this Bizarro was basically evil. The Smallville Bizarro was evil, but there's a lot more to Bizarro than that. He isn't just an out-and-out villain. Bizarro is actually a very, very interesting character. And if you actually adapt the genuine Bizarro, there's a lot of empathy to be taken from that character. But it's also challenging for any actor playing Superman to have to play Bizarro as well. So I would welcome James Gunn's Superman adapting the Bizarro character and David Corenswet playing both Superman and Bizarro. I think it would be excellent. And I do believe that David Corenswet has got the acting chops to play both characters. Don't get it twisted. David Corenswet is a very good actor. His casting is very good. James Gunn denies that he was cast because he was, fans had wanted him for years. Fans did want him for years because guess what? Sometimes fan castings can work. I'm not a big fan of fan castings. I like the net to be spread rather than the latest famous person, being fan cast. Like everyone wants Sydney Sweeney to play every female superhero now just because she looks good in a low-cut top. Yeah, basically, she's overrated because she has a decent cleavage. I'm sorry to say it, but that's why you all like Sydney. I nearly called her Sydney Cleavage. Maybe we should start calling her Sydney Cleavage. And I don't mean to sexualise her or to be disrespectful to her. She's an okay enough actor, but all of a sudden people are calling her, Greta Garbo and things just because she looks good in a low-cut negligee. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of annoying. I'm not a big fan of fan castings, but in terms of the fan casting of David Corenswet as Superman, I'm a big fan of that one because David is a very good actor. And for those of you complaining that he's never on Instagram or X, he's too fucking busy making a film. Just because James Gunn and the other actors are always about, he's a shy lad, he values his privacy, and you should respect that. There's nothing wrong with people not being on social media. I'm on social media all the time. I love it. I love doing my YouTube videos. I love doing my bite-sized video on X and Instagram and Threads and even Facebook. But some people don't want to be on social media. I don't like people looking down on people like me for being on social media a lot. But I also don't like people looking down on people for not being on social media. Everyone's gone mad these days. Just let people be themselves and do whatever the fuck they want. As long as they're not breaking the law or hurting anyone. Okay? But yes, David Corenswet would be an absolutely fantastic Bizarro. And it's something we have seen, as I've explained, we have seen Bizarro in live action before, but to have him in a film and to have him, have a lot of screen time and to have the same actor playing Superman and Clark Kent, because don't forget you're playing Superman, Clark Kent, Kal-El, the last son of Krypton, and Bizarro. It's a big responsibility for an actor to take on. But this actor, David Corenswet, could certainly take it on. Now, some of you may not know that the concept for Nuclear Man in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, originally had Christopher Reeve not just playing Clark, not just playing Superman, but playing Nuclear Man as well. Because he's taken from, he's created by Lex Luthor for a strand of Superman's hair. So the idea was, if they're using Superman's DNA to create Nuclear Man, he must be a kind of remnant of Superman and he would look like Superman. And I know that Christopher Reeve would have pulled it off. But there were no computers back then, or the computer technology just started, and it would have been very, very difficult for them to pull off and expensive. And because the budget was ripped to shreds of that movie, and we saw the end results, very, very tragic. Because I do believe Superman 4, The Quest for Peace had a really good idea. And I think the Nuclear Man that we would have got would have been really, really funny as well as being a threat to Superman and the world. So there was a good idea there, but unfortunately the budget being reduced killed it all. So I think this would be amazing. And I think, and as I say, Bizarro is actually a fascinating character because to me, he's not an out-and-out villain. And as I say, in Smallville, they didn't look. I thought Tom Welling did brilliant as Bizarro and Clark at the same time. And it was very difficult to do. It is a very difficult thing to do. But I think if you take the actual Bizarro from the comics, which I would think that James Gunn will try and adapt as faithfully as possible. So I don't know if this rumour is true, because there's a lot of rumours coming out, and it could just be another rumour. But I think Bizarro would be great, because we don't really know who the villain of this movie is going to be. Is it Lex Luthor? Is Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor just going to be kind of the Gene Hackman Lex Luthor? We've got Miss Tessmacher, we've got Otis. Is he actually going to do anything bad? Is he going to be helping Superman? Is he going to be an ally to Superman in this film? Who knows what James is planning? We just don't know. I like the fact that we don't know much about this movie. Because sometimes you feel like you've seen a movie, these days before you've seen it. Man of Steel and Superman Returns, I felt I'd already seen that movie. All the TV spots, all the trailers. They showed so much of those movies that I already knew the movie and there wasn't much wow factor. I mean, look, I love Man of Steel and I think Superman Returns has, his moments, is a moments Superman movie. But, I like the fact that there's a lot of mystery to this film right now. Now, James has been teasing a lot, and I've said a billion times, who knows if it's going to be good or bad. If you're saying it's definitely going to be good, you're wrong. If you're saying it's definitely going to be bad, you're wrong. But you don't know. We don't know. That's the excitement and the adrenaline about not knowing much about a movie. You go into that theatre You sit down, you know, the logo for the studio comes up, you watch the movie, you're either going to love it, hate it, or, God forbid, a little bit indifferent about it. Because we have become a very black and white society. You know, it's, you know, this good and evil society thing. Everyone is just so simplistic these days. You know, and it's like The Last Jedi. Everyone got so angry about it, but The Last Jedi doesn't make me angry. It underwhelmed me. The Last Jedi actually bored me. I think it's the most boring Star Wars film ever made. Yes, I think it's less boring. I actually think it's more boring than Solo. I think that Solo was okay in places, but who wants a fucking Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford playing Han Solo? And the actor they chose is an excellent, talented actor, but he ain't Harrison Ford at the end of the day, right? So I would absolutely love to see it. Love to see David Corenswet playing not only Superman, Clark Kent and Kal-El, the last son of Krypton, but also playing Bizarro. Because if you actually do the real proper Bizarro, he is a very, very interesting, calamitous, accident waiting to happen character. And that's the version I want to see. So if they're doing that, first of all, it's very different for a Superman movie. Because a Superman movie's never really done that before. Yeah, we have the good and the bad Superman in Superman 3. We have good Clark fighting bad Superman, which is an amazing sequence. Again, no computers back then to have the doubles on the screen, but it works so well how you do it, and it's obvious to anyone or most people, especially people who work in the industry, know that you use body doubles and then, you know, double exposures and things like that. But it was amazingly done. But I think with the advent of CGI, computer-generated images, I think we could do this even better today. And it would be an amazing thing to see. I don't know if they're going to do it or not. What I'm saying to you is, if they do it, I'd be very excited for it. Because we got the movies about Superman already collected. We don't want another version of the same movie. Whether you love the Snyder films or not, whether you like the Dick Donner film or not, we want someone who's going to give us something new. Not to do something new for the sake of doing something new, but someone with a new, improved idea. And that's what excites me. And hopefully that's what we're going to get. And, you know, doing Bizarro is exciting because it is different. Because, you know, he's very, very different. I don't know if the rumours mean, if they're true, that we only get a little bit of Bizarro, because I'd like to see Bizarro actually be a big thing within James's universe. And actually, if you think about Bizarro, you know, he's typical James Gunn. He's typical James Gunn mentality. Now, James may not be. If he does use Bizarro, he may make him a little bit different. I mean, James Gunn doesn't always, you know, stick to canon and stick to comic book lore. When you look at King Shark, very, very different to his counterpart in the comics. But he works. Vigilante, very different to his counterpart, not only in the comics, but in Arrowverse, who were a bit more faithful to who that character is in the comics. But James seems to have the ability, even if he strays from the original material, he can still give you some very, very interesting characters. And Vigilante was very, very interesting to me in Peacemaker. So yeah, I don't know what kind of, you know, Bizarro he would go for, but I think the way Bizarro is in the comics is perfect for James Gunn's kind of writing, kind of caricatures that he develops and designs. So I think he would be absolutely perfect for James Gunn. And I for one, really would love to see this. I think it would be absolutely amazing. Now let's move on, because it's been a big struggle for WB since David Zaslav took over, since the merger with Discovery. It's been difficult because David Zaslav has had to make some very, very difficult but needed decisions. He has shelved movies for tax write-offs. Nobody wants to see this. He tried to sink TCM, you know, something that, you know, people, you know, care about, you know, the Turner Classic Movie Channel, whatever it is, right? You know, that's something that's been around for many, many years. But Zaslav has come in to save WB by trimming the fat, cutting costs. And that's not a nice job to have to do. He also inherited a lot of bad movies that flopped at the box office. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, Flash movie, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which made more money than the other flops, but still not enough. Doing quite well on streaming right now, by the way. David Zaslav, and he tax write-off Batgirl as well. He claimed it was a bad movie. I suspect that David needs to tax write-off at least a movie or a project a year just to keep the wolves from the WB doors. You know, this is the reality of the situation. But things have become very interesting for David Zaslav as rumours persist that he will definitely merge with another company or sell WB to another buyer. I think the only people with any financial clout to do that within the industry right now would be, Comcast Universal. Watch this space because it's April. I'm actually recording this on April Fool's Day, but you'll be getting this video on the 2nd. I'm not an April Fool's person. If you know me from past years, you know that I don't like it. I don't like people being misinformed. And you find out something exciting and then you find out it's an April Fool's joke. Fuck you, do you know what I mean? It's not like I haven't got a sense of humour. If you follow me on X, you'll know I'm making gags up all fucking day. Mostly on the expense of celebrities in the entertainment industry. But hey, who fucking cares? They're millionaires, right? They can just buy themselves an expensive lollipop or car, can't they, at the end of the day? Anyway, let's get back on point. It's so easy for me to get sidetracked. I'm a bit like Homer Simpson. But anyway, so recently, Warner Brothers Discovery is getting back-to-back hits. And it's making more money than Disney, which isn't difficult to do. But back in the day, Disney were dominating with The Force Awakens. Even The Last Jedi made $1 billion. You know, they're animated. You know, Pixar movies were making a lot of money. Marvel was dominating cinemas. You know, the most successful franchise of all time. But things have changed. And WB are now turning things around. Because their debt situation is so huge, they're going to need to be consistent for the next 5 years. But Barbie, over $1 billion. Wonka did really well, around 500 to 600 million globally. Very, very well. Maybe, did they do more than that? I can't remember. You know, then there's the June sequel, June 2, which has crossed Is it 600 million now? Yeah, it's crossed 600 million. Now, that may creep to 700 million by the end of its run. I'm not quite sure, but it's a very good result. And now we have King Kong. I think it's called King Kong X, A New Empire. I think that's the title. I have seen this film. It's had a bumper weekend, and it's really weird because people were underestimating the box office returns in its opening weekend. It was projected to around 45 million. I think it's got 80 million plus domestically, 200 million plus worldwide or globally, however you want to frame it as. So it's a very, very big weekend for Warner Brothers. And as I say, it's back-to-back hits now for David Zaslav's Warner Brothers Discovery. And if not for the 4 flops from the DCEU last year, things will be a lot brighter for WB Discovery. So this is very, very good news for the studio. But it needs more. It needs to consistently win. But I think the only question marks, ironically, for the future of WB is DC itself. Now, will Joker Folly Do be successful? Will that be another hit? That's going to be interesting because that's going to the Venice Film Festival like the first film did. It's going to be a very, very different comic book movie. I mean, I don't go out and watch many musicals, but it's a DC movie. I love the first movie. I'm going to watch this movie. I'm excited about this movie. I never expected a sequel would be a freaking musical. But hey, you know, I love The Wizard of Oz. I love Grease and their musicals as well. So don't be put off by this movie just because it's a musical. But anyway, can't wait for the trailer, which is coming this month, which I will react to here on Movies TV Mad on YouTube. Yes, I know I'm shit with trailer reactions, and when I've seen the trailer, I immediately forget what I've seen, and I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm shit at them, I admit it, but I do love doing them, and I will continue to do stuff that I'm not very good at. Doesn't matter. It's not a big channel. Doesn't have to be a big channel. It's just me rabbiting on, and some of you seem to enjoy me doing that. So, where was I? What was I talking about? Yeah. So, I think the only problem going forward for WB is DC. Because if James Gunn's Superman is successful, then they really can run with all these different projects. Because it's interesting. If that fails, then I think they're going to have to accept that comic book movies need to be rested, and you only need one every 3 or 4 years, right? I'm not saying don't make any CBMs anymore, but if Superman fails, if it were me, I'd go back to the old days of what they did with the Superman, you know, the Christopher Reeve Superman, or, you know, the kind of Tim Burton Superman movies, and, you know, the other ones they did. Do one every 2 to 3 years. Do a CBM every 2 to 3, 4 years. You know, because if Superman doesn't work, you maybe have to start taking the hint. And if Fantastic Four doesn't work, you have to start taking the hint that all these, you know, comic book movie franchises need to be retired, and you just need to do a CBM, as I say, every 3, 4 to 5 years. It would mean they're not a trend anymore. But I tell you what is a trend, these kaiju kind of beast characters like King Kong, like Godzilla, and, you know, King Kong X, a new empire. I nearly called it Frozen Empire, which has had a big drop off this weekend, which has come to no surprise to anyone because it's not the greatest of movies. Time to retire the Ghostbusters. And I'll get to Ghostbusters very shortly, actually, as we're talking about different things today and box offices and things like that. But one thing's for sure, what I've noticed about these King Kong, Godzilla type of movies, even if they're not very good, they still make a considerable amount of money. And for any studio, that's a good thing because it's less of a gamble. I loved King Kong X, A New Empire. I thought it was an outstanding movie, and I'll tell you why the movie worked. Because they reduced the role of the human characters. Some people are complaining that there's not much of a plot in this movie, or the plot doesn't make any sense. Let me explain something to you. No one's going, you know, the hardcore fans of King Kong, Godzilla, and all these creatures, right, are not going with the motivation, oh, I hope the human stories are good. Oh, I hope it has a good plot. Nobody gives a shot. Nobody gives a shit. We're actually going there to see these iconic beasts, these creatures, fight other creatures or fight each other. That's why we're going there. And if we happen to have some empathy, if there's a good little storyline, if there's a good little exchange between these creatures, all the better for it. It's my ambition and my wish to see a King Kong or Godzilla movie that has zero human interaction in it. No human beings at all. Just creatures interacting and fighting. If that means you can only do a 75-minute, 80-minute to 90, 95-minute movie, that's fine with me. Because that's what I want. Because the thing that actually bores me is when I go and see one of these movies and we go to a scene with human beings in it. I'm not there to see human beings, right? I don't like human beings. It's bad enough I have to put up with human beings and people talking their shit on a daily basis. When I go to the cinema to see one of these movies, I don't want to see no humans there, right? I care about people. I have compassion for people. I just don't like people very much, and I don't like many people. Apart from my nieces and nephews, who are the coolest people in the world, all the rest, you know, nah. Or maybe there's a couple of adults I like, but not many. But you get my meaning, right? I'm not going to these movies for a good plot or a good human story. And I know that Godzilla Minus One did have some really good human stories, but at the end of the day, I don't fucking care about human beings. in these iconic monster movies. And this is why A New Empire worked really well. This is why A New Empire is making lots of money. And I said it before this movie came out, before I knew anything about this movie. If they actually make a movie with limited human interaction and more kind of monster and focusing on these creatures, these iconic creatures, I said, you're going to make a lot of fucking money. Surprise, surprise, LA, Californian critics don't like the movie. But it's very, very interesting. Nothing makes me more happier than to see these LA critics exposed. On Rotten Tomatoes, the verified critic score is very, very low, but the audience score is huge. And I think it's better to have a huge audience score than a critical score. Now, studios may not believe that, but I do. The problem with audience scores, people don't believe them. People believe the verified critics more because they think that section can't be messed with. The problem with Rotten Tomatoes now, both sections can now be manipulated and we can't trust anyone. But as a studio, if I could believe the audience scores, I'd say, yeah, the people we're making the movie for are happy. The people that we need to spend their fucking money are happy. And that's more important than a bunch of snobby verified critics. Now, obviously, you'd feel verified critics, if they give it a film the thumbs up, can sell it more. But nobody trusts verified critics anymore. I certainly haven't trusted them for a very long time. Modern critics are not even real critics. Most of them wouldn't know anything about a film if it said hello to them. Most of them don't understand the process of making a film. And let's briefly talk about what goes into making a film. We talk about films on these platforms every fucking day as nerds and geeks, right? And people who love film, right? But making a film is a very hard job. It's like a puzzle. There's all these different departments. There's all these different jobs that you have to do. It's not just about writing a script. It's not just about putting actors in front of a camera and saying, right, say your lines, that's great, cut. Let's go and cut the movie now. It's a very hard job. And there's all these different elements. And so it's not about the red carpets and the interviews. People who make films work very, very hard. There is no question about that. But even though it's a hard job, if I don't like a film, I will say I don't like a film. And I feel bad for the people who have worked really hard in these different departments to put these films together. But at the end of the day, it's not a charity. I can't give you my money just because you work hard. I'm not going to eat moldy fucking cheese just because the people in the factory worked hard to make that cheese. I'm sorry, life sucks. When you're making food, when you're making art, when you're making film, it has to be something people want to consume. But the lesson here with King Kong X and New Empire is make stuff that you would want to watch and people will go and watch it. Make something that inspires people, that excites people, that makes people happy. Then you will make money. It really is simple. It's not simple to create art. It's not simple to make a movie. As I say, it's very complicated and difficult to make movies and make television drama or shoot anything. It's a big, difficult, complicated job. Don't get it twisted, and I know that myself. But if you want to make money, just make something that you would want to go and see yourself. If you actually, it's like the Sonic movies, right, we've seen so far. It's not William Shakespeare, it's not the Ten Commandments, it's not something that it's not Oppenheimer, right? But you went to the cinema and you saw both movies and you thought, yeah, that was fun. That made my brain switch off for a couple of hours, and that's the point. And the point about movies is I grew up with movies being released in theatres that were different. You could see the biopics, you could see the educational movies, but then you could go and watch Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, switch your brain off, right? Or Back to the Future, switch your brain off. I mean, I was watching Who Framed Roger Rabbit. What a fucking achievement that film is. And you know why that film is such an achievement? Because not only is it groundbreaking in mixing real people with animated characters without the advent of CGI and doing that, physically with different techniques, but it's actually got a great story, because Steven Spielberg said to Zemeckis, you ain't making this film just for an experiment with live action and animated characters. This film has to exist for a reason. And they were the values in old Hollywood, in the Hollywood that I grew up around, the films that I saw growing up. And that's the reason that films are not very good today.